the respected chairman, co-chairman, distinguished lead speakers, delegates. Let me at the outset thank Mr. Parthasarthi, Secretary, Government of Telangana. I suppose that for last 3 days we have been talking about, and majority of the things which I would like to say, they have already been talked about here and there. On biodiversity itself, Dr. Naidu has shown some light. It would be very difficult for me to find something new, but I would try to dig out something which may be relevant to the topic. At the outset, I would say that we traveled a lot in India, starting from 1947, when India was heavily dependent on import of food grains, mainly from US. The most important challenge for the government at that time was to feed its people, either through import or through increased production in the country. Unfortunately, our government at that time decided to have the second option, that to produce more in the country rather than import. Accordingly, we had restructuring of ICR, making it the apex body in the country, to plan, coordinate, and implement the agricultural research in the country. Subsequently, many of the agricultural universities were created, national institutes were created. And one of the most important part of that time was the launch of All India Coordinated Research Projects. And luckily, in early 60s, we had dwarf yielding varieties of wheat having Norin-10 genes, and similarly in rice from Iri, DG, Ujan genes. And those varieties, high-yielding dwarf varieties, were aggressively tested in India. And if you recall, I think that was at that time that 250 tons of seed alone of wheat was imported from CIMIT, which made it possible to increase our food production in the country. Many of the varieties were as such taken from CIMIT or IRI. They were tested and released as such, but at the same time, our scientists converted them into our own varieties, and all these improved our food grain production in the country. And there was thinking at that time that we have to have now some kind of seed organization in the country to produce seed of the varieties. And thereby, NSC was born out in 1963. And to me, NSC is mother of seed program in the country. Had it not been at that time, I think the situation would have been different. All these factors or the progress or the things which happened, they made it possible to have green revolution in the country, in India. And slowly, India started becoming independent in its food grain availability. In 1970s, we produced 88 million tons of food grains compared to 50 million tons in 50-51. And thereby, India was almost self-sufficient. And then subsequently, of course, from 90 onwards, we are surplus country, exporting some of the farm commodities. As far as seed sector is concerned, we are late entrants in seed sector. Only in 63, as I told you, the private sector started very slowly at that time. But lately, then we had state seed corporations also. In 80s, our private seed sector improved upon, particularly after the launch of new seed policy in 1988, whereby it was defined that anybody can import any seed material from anywhere of the world. Similarly, we had enacted the Seed Act in 1966. Indian minimum seed certification standards came in, and our seed program started in a fruitful manner. And thereby, there are many achievements in seed sector. I think we have been talking for last 3 days. Similarly, there were improvements in ICR. We had a separate seed section in ICR on seed. The AICRP of seed, which we call as National Seed Project, was also launched in 77, 78. And all these developments made it possible that we are today in a very strong footing. Many of the people have been talking for last 3 days that we have made miracles in seed sector. The food grain production again has gone very high to 64 million tons. The breeder seed, which is the foundation stone of the seed program, I think if I remember correctly in 60s, we have been talking breeder seed in kgs only. But now at this moment, we have crossed 1 lakh quintals of breeder seed production. Before last year, it was 1,15,000 quintals of breeder seed. And mind you, that this is only public sector breeder seed, not private sector involved in it. Quality seed, again, which was documented only, I think, 50-51, only about, you can say, less than 2 lakh quintals of seed. Now we are producing more than about 400 lakh quintals of quality seed in the country. The SRR, again, has been improved in many of the crops. In many crops, we are at a very comfortable position. Cotton, we have been talking about 100%. Vegetables, we are talking more than 90%. In rice, in soybean, in mustard, in many crops you talk about, we have now good SRR. And SRR is an indication that we have been using quality seed in our commercial cultivation. We are in many of the crops, either first or second in the world now, as far as production is concerned, like say wheat, rice, we are second. In vegetables, in fruits, we are second. In sugarcane, we are first. And there are so many other things which are on our credit, like we are the only country to have cotton hybrids, first in the world, castor, safflower, pigeon pea, basmati rice. These are the areas where we have the first hybrids in the world. The availability of quality seed naturally made it possible to have this kind of food production, and thereby the adoption of the new yielding varieties coupled with the production technology. And the model which we have created in India has been appreciated all over. But at the same time, having this all achievement on the credit, we have so many challenges, and I have listed here many of them, like our population increase at every time, every day, stagnation in production, we are having more demand, sustainability of natural resources is a concern, soil health, we had discussion yesterday, decline in total factor productivity, increase in cost of production, and many of these things, they have been listed and you can go through. At the same time, we also have new opportunities available with us. Some of them I have listed here, like we have now geographical indications in place, and we have many of them granted. The PPV FR Act is there. Dr. Anchinal, chairperson, is here. We have Biological Diversity Act 2002, the plant biotechnology, the hybrid seed, which is the only hope that we can have higher productivity in the coming years, the export of seed, and over and above public and private partnership. Geographical indications, I think everybody knows, and here are some of the examples which have been granted the geographical indications, but there are many more on this list. The PPVFR, I think you have been discussing and you know all about. I would not go into detail, but I would say that there are 4 provisions in the Act which are very relevant to this topic today, the topic which I am interested upon. The one is the breeder's right. The breeder has the sole right on his variety. But at the same time, there is researcher's right, means researcher can do any type of research involving the protected variety. He can also breed new variety involving the protected variety, but at the same time, he has to show to the authority which is sitting here that the material which he has used in developing the new variety is lawfully obtained. Only then he can get the protection. The last but very important is benefit sharing. If any breeder has used others' material in breeding of his new variety or the hybrid, he has to share the benefits out of the profit he is earning from. The plant breeding, the plant biotechnology is an area I think many of the people have talked about. There are many areas, they have been listed here, where the plant biotechnology can help us to develop the new plant type, having the new kind of resistance and quality, etc. Hybrid, I have already talked about. There is very high scope of increasing our export of seed. Public-private partnership. Now, this is an area you can say that any of the program anywhere in the world, if you start, it starts with the government of the country. So is the case of seed in India that we started with public sector. And public sector has done very well. It has made the India proud. We are independent now in food production. Our leaders or the government is independent of taking any decision about India because we are not dependent to anybody else. But slowly the private sector has come in and it has become very important. And many of the people have said that the private sector is producing more than 50%, sometimes we say 60%, 70%. But as far as volume is concerned, I think more than 50% is produced by private sector. Many of the seed companies have developed very well. Many of the MNCs have come in the country. And now there is a question whether the public or private, what will be the demarcation, what will be the competition, what will be the cooperation. The private sector, many of the company, as we have been listening, that they have very good infrastructure, very good facilities. And there is need that way, particularly in the hybrid, that we have to have some kind of public-private partnership. Otherwise, particularly the hybrids bred by public sector may not find place because of non-availability of seed. The topic of biodiversity, which has been interested, it is listed here that what we mean by biological diversity, any variability available in the country includes the biological resources or the biological diversity. We have International Convention on Biological Diversity, where it is defined that the sovereign rights of nation over their genetic resources, their rights to determine the access to them based on prior informed consent and linking the access to transfer of relevant technologies. And finally, the plant genetic resources are the common heritage of mankind. In recognizing that India is rich in biological diversity, as Dr. Naidu has also pointed out, India is a party to United Nations Convention, and the Convention reaffirms the sovereign rights. The Government of India enacted the Biological Diversity Act in 2002. Now, this act very clearly says that to provide for conservation of biological resources or the biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of these biological resources, knowledge, and for matters connected thereon. Now, everything is defined in that. To implement this act, we have an authority that is based in Chennai, and as per the act, no person shall, without previous approval of the NBA, obtain any biological resource occurring in India or knowledge associated thereto for research or for commercial utilization or for by-survey and by-utilization. I mean, these are the basic informations about that. Now, as far as seed is concerned, because we have to talk about the role of Biodiversity Act with regard to seed. Seed has been right from beginning is the key for your agricultural growth. Everything is written here. Even the Green Revolution was because of the miracle seed of high-yielding varieties. Otherwise, it would have not been possible. And this availability of high-yielding varieties at that time led to the foundation of seed industry in the country. As per the statistics available, improved varieties or hybrids contribute about 45% of your increased productivity. And as such, if you talk of seed, 10 to 20% increase you can have. The breeders' right which have been defined through even UPO convention or in our act also, UPO considered that access to genetic resources is a key requirement for sustainable and substantial progress in plant breeding. Dr. Paroda, who is ex-Director General ICAR and a renowned scientist, he has advocated that the germplasm conservation through use can help in achieving both sustainable agricultural growth and development. Hence, the germplasm availability, whatever we have with NBPGR, being national public goods, be made available to all stakeholders in developing the new varieties. There may be SMTA with safeguards, and we can make this diversity available to all our stakeholders, including the private sector. Considering the availability of germplasm as the key for varietal development programs, we have to make sure that it is made available to both public and private. It is the diversity of the parents involved which determines the fate of the new variety or the hybrid we have or the combinations of genes we are working on. The diversity may be within a species, it may be within genera, plants, or total bioresource, which with the help of plant biotechnology, we are able now to use in breeding of new varieties. We feel that in the PPV-FR era, there may be restrictions to make available the genetic resources to the stakeholders. But certainly there is a clause of researchers' right. But in practical sense, how much we are getting and how we will be getting, that's a question. There is a statement of Dr. Swaminathan that enhancing productivity in perpetuity without associated with ecological harm is called evergreen revolution. Now we have been talking about green revolution, and the pathway to achieve the evergreen revolution is either through organic cultivation, organic farming, or the green agriculture. Whether we achieve it or not, that's a question to the scientists. And this evergreen revolution will help us to take advantage of vast untapped resources we have in the country. He also said that there is a case, and in fact China scientists are working particularly in rice, that they are trying to convert the C3 plants into C4 plants which are more efficient in photosynthesis. So can this plant biotechnology can help us in converting the C3 plants into C4 plants. Similarly, we have been talking about fertilizer, we have been talking about water. So can we breed varieties through plant biotechnology which are water use efficient and nitrogen use efficient varieties? Now, they have to make arrangement for proper conservation of our biodiversity available in those states, document all the biodiversity, and finally make available these biodiversity or genetic resources or germplasm to all stakeholders. The public-private partnership herein also in the germplasm supply, there has to be trust between the supplier and the company or the person to whom it is given, the openness, the transparency. And this can be built up only through regular interactions, the dialogues, otherwise not. Good models of public-private partnership, particularly in seed, has been there in IRI, in many other institutes, IRI, CRESET, and so, that can be replicated by others. We feel, or rather, I feel that there will be an era now of MOU between public and private sector, research institutions and private seed companies. There will also be an era between private and private. The process has already started in many of the institutions, and I think PRH10 of hybrid rice of IRI, they have, I think, MOU with around 20 seed companies. Seed material from the institutions free of cost or freely as on today, because the public institutions are public funded. The availability of protected variety for breeding program or development of varieties and conducting research should not be a problem as per the clause of researchers' right. And I feel there will certainly be a shift in seed program, particularly because we are moving towards private sector more. But to private sector, the clause of benefit sharing or EDV will be an issue to be taken up in the right direction.